This is Shari Crittendon, and I serve as Senior Corporate Counsel and Director of Outreach and Compliance for the nonprofit Constitutional Law Center for Muslims in America. Today's webinar is on nonprofits, and the first installment is Governance in a Crisis. This webinar series is for informational purposes only, and if you and or your organization have specific legal issues, we ask you to seek competent legal advice. So the threat of the coronavirus in COVID-19 is unsettling and startling. By the time you read this post, there will be over 1 million infections documented in the United States with over 60,000 deaths. As it deepens, as it spreads across the United States, it's, in addition to be a horrific public health crisis, it's also an economic tsunami. The government has passed 2 bills, the CARES Act, infusing $2.5 trillion, making it available for small to mid-sized businesses to help stem the tide. States, although uneven, have issued stay-at-home orders, but now they're starting to relax those, also in an effort to turn around the economy. So the issue becomes, how do you balance a strong economy against a pandemic, a public health crisis? And that's where nonprofits step into the gap. The challenge is the constituents nonprofit serves are not prepared medically, financially, physically to address the crisis. And nonprofits themselves are struggling with, how do we help our community? How do we implement our mission when we're working hard to, to survive ourselves? So the point of this webinar is to give you some pointers on how do you bring order to chaos. The first approach a nonprofit board should take is determining their role. Is it a leadership role or operational, or is it a little bit of both? Assess and strategize. Communicate often, engage a variety of perspectives, develop a business continuity plan, and adapt and implement a creative fundraising plan. I'm going to focus on 4 areas, but out of those 4 areas, there are several steps that flow from them that are critical for boards and leadership to think about. Whether it's in a steady state or a crisis, boards still have core duties to adhere to. The duty of care, to stay engaged and to attend meetings. The duty of loyalty, no conflict of interest. And the duty of obedience, understand your bylaws, review your policies and procedures, and fill in any gaps. So you can't meet in person, so hold virtual board meetings. This is not the time to have a fussy governance protocol. It's time to be prudent. Review your critical documents, as I mentioned, and delegate where appropriate. Boards are supposed to focus on risk management, physical stability, strategy, and delegate the day-to-day operations to the leadership where possible, because they're closer to the issues. Anticipate different scenarios. And in this scenario modeling, what steps are you going to take in each best case or worst case scenario? Make sure you record all your decisions in case you're challenged by your members, your board, your donors, or the government. If you don't have a business continuity plan, don't try to create one right now. However, it is important that you coalesce around 4 major areas and provide a timeline when you'll address them. The first one, and your most important, are your personnel. Who are your core or essential personnel? What is their contact information? What is their emergency contact information? How are you going to operate financially? What resources do you need? How are you going to make payroll? How are you going to pay vendors? Pay your lease? And during this time, you should look at your policies to see where those gaps are. So do you have a telework or remote working policy? Is your sick leave policy flexible to take into consideration all the permutations that can occur during this crisis? Finally, what's your technological capacity? Do you have to expand your bandwidth on your internet? Do you have to create a more robust website to be able to communicate effectively? It's important to assess your people, your finances, your technology, and your policies in order to deploy only mission-critical activities and resources during this time. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Tone is set from the top. This is the who, what, where, when, and how. Who are you designating to speak on behalf of the organization? And is that to every constituent? So to employees or vendors or donors or the media when necessary. What is your messaging? What are you saying? How frequently are you providing these updates? Boards are not expected to be the primary source of updates on coronavirus. However, to assuage the fears of your donors, of your employees, of your volunteers, it's important to have factual and timely, coherent and consistent messaging. This is also a great time to tell your story. So how are you doing this? What platform? Is it via email? Is it via the phone, your website, or your first foray into social media? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. The most risk nonprofits can have at this time is when they poorly message or communicate with key stakeholders, or they don't manage their employees correctly. If employees believe that their well-being is not paramount, but only the bottom line, then you're not going to be successful in getting through this period of uncertainty. So be flexible. For non-essential employees, if you have them, or volunteers, let them telework. But make sure they have the resources, they have the internet speed, they have the laptops, they know how to use some of these platforms. Also, actively encourage sick employees to stay home. Stay abreast. As I mentioned, state, federal, local regulations are changing, and the Family First Coronavirus Response Act actually set guidelines that enhance sick leave policies and family medical leave policies. Be aware of them. Your employees will be. Also, emphasize how you're going to reopen. When? Is it going to be phased in? Is it going to be staggered? And what type of protocols will you have? Will persons have to wear masks? Certain face coverings? What are the hygienic protocols? Do they have to wash their hands at a certain period in time? Do they have to clean their personal office space? And will you provide cleaning services beyond the take out the trash and vacuuming that will use disinfectant in communal areas, such as the copier, the water cooler, the coffee maker, door handles, light switches? Advise employees before traveling that they should continue to adhere to the protocols of the office when they're away. Because of the state-by-state safety precautions, some employees may lapse in their social distancing measures and their hygienic protocols. Also, postpone any events where create mass gatherings and there could be a safety challenge. Also, make sure that you encourage your employees for self-care. If you have health insurance that provides employee assistance programs, make sure your employees are aware of that. Encourage lunchtime walks or nature, virtual coffee breaks, passion podcast, and streaming faith-based or inspirational services or convenings. And then do a one-on-one safety check. Check on your employees and see how they're doing and support them in any way is reasonable that the organization can accommodate them. Fundraising. So you say, Shari, how can I court and cultivate and conserve these relationships with our donors? There's a way we sustain our mission. How do we do that when we're physically separated? This is the time for creativity and innovation. Pivot to virtual fundraising models. And there's many samples out there. Develop creative approaches to fundraising. So what's in need? Medical supplies, medical equipment, food, facility leases if you have space. Diversify your revenue streams. If you only were focused on in-person one-on-one donors, expand that focus to community trust, corporations, foundations, and high net worth individuals. Don't go it alone. Use all your resources. And that organization that you considered a competitor, perhaps now they can become a collaborator as you're going over the same donor pool. Don't stop making that ask. Studies have shown after 9/11, after Hurricane Katrina and Harvey and Maria and the Great Recession, donors still continue to give. If they had faith in the organization, you had a great story to tell, you had data to back it up. And don't lose faith. This is hard work, and you're not alone. We're here to assist. Some nonprofit resources, Health and Human Services, the Center for Disease Control.gov. And right now, there are free webinars available at major nonprofit assistance organizations, such as the Council of Nonprofits, Board Source, Governance Matters. So seek those out. They have great information that can help you as you continue to govern these valued nonprofits. So my theme, don't go it alone. And you can go to www.clcma.org and press the Nonprofit Assistance tab. There you'll find additional resources and information to help you now and after this crisis. And as we say, we are all in this together. Thank you.